Hello and welcome to a short history of the Thames Tunnel. First, let me introduce you to Marc Isambard Brunel. He was a Frenchman born in 1769 in Normandy, France, but fled to America in 1793 during the French Revolution. While he was in America, he worked on many projects in New York and Pennsylvania as a highly skilled engineer. In 1799, he sailed to London to be with Sophia Kingdom, a British woman, and once he gained citizenship, he worked for the British Navy to improve their production of pulley systems for the shipyards. Marc and Sophia had two daughters before they had the esteemed Isambard Kingdom Brunel in 1806. Isambard followed in his father's footsteps and became an engineer, attending the University of Caen, Normandy, at age 14, and the School of Henry IV in Paris, the same schools his father attended. Isambard returned to England in 1822 and worked as an assistant engineer on the Thames Tunnel construction. After the tunnel project, he went on to become a well-known engineer in London, constructing railways, tunnels, and bridges throughout the city. At the time, London was the largest city in the world and only had a handful of bridges, and they were all quite busy with pedestrians, carriages, and goods being moved around the city. This made crossing the Thames an annoying task, but that's when Marc had an idea. A tunnel under the Thames! It was the perfect solution. The tunnel would be dug under the river from Rotherhithe to Wapping. In 1818, Marc got a patent for his design for a tunneling shield. This device is instrumental in the construction of larger tunnels and made building much easier. In 1824, the Thames Tunnel Company is founded, and it was essential to gather funding and support for the tunnel. Construction started in February of 1825 in Rotherhithe. A shaft was built above ground and sunk under its own weight. With only 2 more feet to sink, it needed 50,000 more bricks added on top. Now deep underground, work could begin. How did the shield work? Marc Brunel was inspired by the shipworm that he saw in the naval shipyards that would dig through wood. An iron casting or shield was constructed to push through the clay, while 36 miners could work at one time to dig through shutter-like openings. Behind the shield, many men would be quickly moving the earth being dug up and bricking up the walls. The process was worked in 28-hour shifts. Although Brunel's workers were paid well, the working conditions were not ideal. The men had to use oil lamps for light, and the water that came through the soil was full of sewage, methane, and a number of other unpleasant things. Many of the miners became quite ill because of the water, including Isambard himself. Some got black fingernails, and most were covered in black grime. The condition of the soil meant that water could flood the tunnel at any moment, but despite the risk, the tunnel needed money and allowed 700 visitors a day down into the tunnel for only a penny a head to see the 8th wonder of the world with their own eyes. Despite 2 floods that occurred in the tunnel in 1826 from pump failure and again in 1827, the Thames Tunnel needed funding. The tunnel was set up for a banquet for 50 guests in November of 1827. This event gave the project much-needed publicity to continue construction. A painting was done of the banquet and includes a depiction of Marc Brunel, even though he was not actually present for the event. In 1828, the tunnel had its worst flood yet. Despite putting thousands of pounds of clay on the bottom of the Thames, this flood killed 6 miners and injured Isambard, who barely escaped with his life. After the flood in 1828, the tunnel was pumped dry and bricked up because the Thames Tunnel was out of money. Between 1828 and 1836, hard work was being done to convince the government to loan £246,000 for the tunnel to be finished. The money was finally awarded, and Marc got a patent for a new and improved shield to get the job done. Construction continued, and the tunnel passed the point where there's only 4.3 meters between the river and the tunnel. In 1841, the tunnel finally reached Wapping, and in 1842, a new engine house was built next to the shaft to house the pump and allowed visitors to use the shaft stairs to enter the tunnel. The tunnel was constructed as a 2-arch structure and is 6.8 meters tall and 11.4 meters wide across both arches. Small niches in the side of each arch allowed space for vendors to sell items. The Thames Tunnel had the double arch logo way before McDonald's stole it from them. Overall, it cost £630,000 to complete the tunnel. The money loaned from the government would never be paid back, with visitors only paying a penny to visit, so horse and carriage access was never built to allow the tunnel to move goods across the river. Instead, the tunnel became an underground circus, and some even called it the Hades Hotel. In 1843, the tunnel was finally opened to the public, and in the first day, 50,000 visitors came down the stairs into the tunnel. The structure was so new and bizarre that it was a badge of honor to buy as many things as you could walking the length of the tunnel to prove your bravery. For 22 years, the tunnel was used for a variety of reasons, and the dark niches lent themselves to black market transactions. In 1865, the tunnel was sold to the East London Railway for £200,000. It was converted from a circus to a railway, and on the 7th of December, 1869, only 4 years later, the first steam train ran under the river. It wasn't until 1913 that the trains became electric and converted into a more efficient system under the city. In 1914, the tunnel became part of the Metropolitan Line in the London Underground. The tunnel is remembered through the Brunel Museum in 2006, and from 2007 to 2010, the tunnel was refurbished and is now part of the London Overground that still runs today. Thanks for watching.